right, good morning, everybody. I love that you're hanging out and fellowshipping. This is great. Give the band a big hand, man. You guys did a great job. I think it was Emma. I don't remember. I don't know your names, but I think it was Emma. Emma, that song in the middle, they had a line that said, "My life's endeavor is to match your surrender." That's really deep. And that's what my message is about today. So you guys were thinking backwards last week to Preacher Man is what I called Tad Kilgore, and then it ties right into this morning. So I have no idea how this morning is going to go, all right? I'm so honored to be here. For those of you that don't know, I grew up in this church as a teenager, and most people are trying to forget those years. But it was a great time. I got baptized here. Where's Preacher Tag? Did he leave already? Oh, you're right there. Okay. So he baptized me, and I answered a call to preach in this church. And I preached my first message in this church. That someone said to me about 3 years ago, "I remember your very first message." I'm like, "Well, can you not remember that?" Because it was like 8 minutes long, and I preached it 3 times in that 8 minutes, okay? And ever since that time, my kids are like, "Dad, could you go back to the 8-minute sermons, please? Those would be great." But I'm honored to be here. It's going to be very special for me, so I just want to thank you for letting me hang out. Preacher Man, Miss Joy, I love you. Thank you for loving me all through the years. I got so many stories. I was telling, I don't remember their names, Terry and Mary, is that right? Okay, and you had another friend there. She already left. But anyway, I was telling them that if I get talking about stories about growing up here, we'll never get to the message. And Jason said I had to be done by 2 p.m. And I'm like, okay, we can make that happen. Thanks for letting me hang out with you. I'm going to share my heart with you. And it'll be kind of probably emotional for me today. It's been forever since I've been back here. I love your building. So Jason, thanks for calling me and letting me come and hang out with you guys. Thank the board for letting me come and preach. And so I'm going to jump in here in about a minute and a half. Before I do that, this is Craig Dell right here. Craig, right so they can see you. Just give him a big hand. I'm going to tell you about Craig. Craig is, I've known him for over 30 years, and he has been a friend and advisor to all my ministries globally and locally. He loves my family. I love his family. He's got 2 great kids. His wife's at Nag's Head hanging out with her family. And so he drove up today. When he's close by, he said, "I'm going to drive in and hang out with you." He's from Idaho. Just kidding. But he loves to hang out, and he's been super huge for me and some of the decisions we've made, not just in the U.S., but around the world. So Craig, I love you, buddy. Thanks for hanging out. And we got a lot more we're going to get accomplished. So all right, so let me walk in. Let me tell you how I got to my message. I don't ever preach new messages, old messages. I always share where I'm at in my life, and that's what I'm gonna do today, so just buckle in a little bit, okay? And so I have my message laid out. My wife, I haven't seen my wife in 2.5 weeks, okay? So I went to California, which I'm gonna share a little bit about that in a minute, for about 8 or 9 days with 2 of my boys, and then when I flew back, she flew out to Nashville. She would be with me today, but she's with our grandkids in Nashville hanging out. I think she likes them better than me. I don't know, but she's there. I'll see her tomorrow for the first time in about 2.5 weeks. And so I've been in charge of my house for a week and a half, and that's gone really good. You know how if you use all the dishes, then you typically, we men don't wash them. I just don't use them. And that way my wife gets home, she's like, "You did great." I'm like, "You're welcome." I didn't use any of them. So anyway, it's been great. Me and my dog, he's depressed because my kids aren't around. And but anyway, it's been a crazy time. And so let me show you where I'm at right now. So I have my message laid out. And for the last 5 years, while I study, I turn on this worship song that I've been listening to repeatedly for over 5 years now. I've listened to it hundreds of times. And I heard it during COVID, and it's a worship song called "Worthy," sang by John Wilds. And the first time I ever heard it, it just wrecked me in a good way. And so every time I preach, when I travel, I will turn that song on when I'm finalizing everything, and I just play it in the background. Does that make sense? It just kind of helps me get ready. And so last night at about 10 o'clock, I have my notes out, and he doesn't know this, but we're good friends. So I turned on John Wilds, and he was singing in the background. It's a 25-minute song because they're in a live concert, and it's incredible. And right in the middle of that song, I just stopped and began listening to it again. I know it by heart. And And God just spoke to me very clearly, Craig, and he's like, what you have is not what I want you to share. I'm like, well, you better move real fast because it starts in 12 hours. And so I stayed up till late, and then God woke me up at 3 a.m. this morning, and I finished this message. It's going to strike as a little bit odd, but I wrote this last night, and this is what God wanted me to share with you, because the song he was singing is called Worthy is His Name. Worthy is the name of Jesus. And there's no better message that I could share with you today than Jesus. And I may never see you again. I don't know. But I know this, the most important thing I can share with you, that Jesus is enough. So we're going to talk a little bit about Jesus this morning. Is that okay that we talk about that today? I'm going to spend some time on that, all right? So thanks for letting me hang out. Now, here's the backdrop to that story. I was in California. My son, I have 5 kids. If you want them, you can have all of them. I have 4 boys and an adopted daughter. And so I was in California with my 2 middle sons. They live in California. And so I flew out there and we were hanging out. And my middle son, who's 19, is a worship guy. Like, he writes music. Loves what he does. My wife's a musician. He got it from her. I can't do anything with music. I don't even know where middle C is. I know it's got to be in the middle. That's all I know. But I went out there for a week, and he went to a school of worship in California. So he's 19, just turned 19, so he can't rent a car. He can't stay in a hotel. So I flew out and said, I'll spend a week with you. Well, John Wilds, about a year ago, my son went to one of his concerts, one of his worship nights, and he got to meet him, and which I thought was the coolest thing. And my son didn't know that I'd had John Wilds on repeat now for like 5 years, right? And unbeknownst to John and everybody else, we're tight. And so anyway, he becomes friends with him. They start communicating. So he goes to the school of worship in California, and John's there, and they didn't know each other were going to be there. And they meet. There's 2,000 people there, and John's leading worship and teaching seminars. So we're there all week. And so we get to the hotel on Wednesday night, and I said, Brendan, I need to tell you a story. And he's like, all right, what is it? I was like, I don't know if you know this or not, but I know you and John been hanging out, because he was over at John's Airbnb. They were going out, drinking coffee. I was dropping them off. And I'm like 3 years old, right? I'm like, John Wilds is right over there in the coffee shop. And I said, Brendan, so I told him the story about the COVID thing and about how I listened to his song. And he was like, well, I didn't know that. And I'm like, oh, I know, I hadn't told anybody. Your mom doesn't even know this story. And I was like, but I need to meet John. And he's like, oh, yeah, we can set that up. And I was like, okay, this is pretty important to me. So Thursday evening, they have it. Listen, I know how I grew up in church. My son will go to a worship night that lasts for 3.5 hours. Anybody ever been to 3.5 hour worship night? Both of you, yeah. So I went to the last one, and I stood up for 3.5. It was incredible, and I'll talk about that maybe another time. So Thursday night, I get to go to the worship night. The public can come in. So I went there. My son's up front with John. They're worshiping. And so we go to leave, and we get in the car, and we're getting ready to pull out. It's like 10:30 at night. My son's like, hey, John's called. And I'm like, ooh. And he said, hey, he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm in the car with my dad. He's like, okay, all right, click. He's like, he's driving over here now. And I'm like, oh. So he pulls over, his wife's with him. I get out of the car, I run around, and I don't know John, right? And I think I do, but I have never met him. I don't know. And he just gives me the biggest hug. And we're standing in their parking lot in Redding, California, and it is just a moment. And I said, I have been listening to your song that you sang during COVID. And he goes, at Victory Church, worthy is his name. I said, that's it. He goes, 25 minutes long. I'm like, that's the one. I said, that song has literally changed my life. And you loving on my son is a big deal to me. And we spoke for about 10 or 15 minutes. Now we really are tight. And so that's the genesis of these thoughts. So I'm gonna have you turn into a scripture that's gonna strike you as odd, because I know we're in July, but I'm gonna read to you a very seasonally driven text, if you don't mind. The book of Matthew, chapter number 1. I wanna read you verses 21 to 23. And so just don't lose me as soon as you get to and find out what it is. Just hang on tight for a second. Matthew 1, verses 21 to 23. And I'm going to read it to you. Then I'm going to go back and kind of break it down a little bit. And then we'll just kind of start and see where it goes, okay? And if you get bored, you can if we're still here at 1, you can leave. And we'll go from there. Matthew 1, verse 21, it says, she will bear a son. And you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord has spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. Now, my whole message this morning is going to drive to one point that it's going to take me about 20 minutes to get to, okay? So just, if you can bear through the middle, the ending will be worth it, I hope, because that's the only reason I'm speaking this message is for one thought at the very end that I haven't read yet, but I'll get to it in a second. But I'm going to go back through this verse because I know this is a Christmas verse. But I love Christmas, the Christmas time of year. It's special to me for a lot of reasons I won't get into this morning. But when I was watching that video last night and I had this great message lined out, it was a super awesome message. I shared with my wife. She goes, that's going to be great. Then I called her this morning. I'm like, guess what? I'm not even sharing that message. She was like, you spend a lot of time on that message. I'm like, no, that message was for me. This one's from Jesus. And there is a difference. So I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to give you like 4 or 5 just observations that I had on this text when I read it, because I've been hearing this verse my whole life. And most of you have heard this verse. Even if you don't go to church, you probably have heard this verse. Let me walk you through it. Look at the first part. She shall bear a son. I don't know why, but when I read it last night, it just struck me. She shall bear a son. And when I think about the idea of bearing something in the original language, it means to produce. It actually has 3 meanings. It means to literally give birth. Secondly, it means to imply something in the future is going to be produced by you bearing something, like when you plant a seed and it later bears fruit. It has a future implication. And then thirdly, it's really written in future tense. She will bear a son. It's interesting how the angel shares that. The angel's sharing this with Joseph, and he's saying, she will, future tense. It's going to happen. And it's that way because it relates back to the prophecy that was predicted by Isaiah. The virgin shall conceive and bear a son. They'll call his name Emmanuel. So the idea of bearing is a big deal because I don't think it's ironic at all that the birth of Christ in its immaculate form was still painful. Through a young teenage girl who would give birth to God, which it's hard to wrap her head around that. It's hard to think about that. She gives birth to God. And I know Mary, it was a big deal to her to try to even ponder that. As a matter of fact, when she held Jesus for the first time, Luke writes that the people came to see him and they brought him gifts. And there was all this attention and fanfare around a baby. And the Bible says that when they left, Mary stopped and held Jesus and she pondered all these things in her heart. It's no mystery, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, that the beginning of one of the greatest stories ever had its beginning in the most normal, painful way, in what we would call the Immaculate Conception. The second thing I notice is the second phrase, and you shall call his name Jesus, and he will save his people from their sins. I want you to notice the progression. Look at the progression. She will bear a son, and you will call his name Jesus. And then it switches to what Jesus will do. First, Mary's going to bear a son through pain. The curse of the Garden of Eden would be how she would bring the perfect birth into place for divinity. You will bear a son in pain. You will call his name salvation. And he will save his people from their sin. Aren't you glad of that? Man, I was reading this last night and I thought, man, I am such a sinner. And the longer I live and the closer I get to Jesus, the more I realize how bad I really am. Can I get a witness on that, right? I know you're supposed to get more holy, and the holier I get, the unholier I feel. Somehow that makes sense. I don't know how. But it's ironic to me as you read this progression. Mary bears a son, they call his name Jesus, and when he's born, he saves Mary, his mother, from herself. It's a powerful thought to see the interaction between humanity and divinity. Let me read on. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord has spoken by the prophet. Now, just time out for a second. Let me go here for about a minute or two and don't throw anything at me. So I find it ironic that you have this whole story of the miraculous conception, the immaculate birth of a teenage girl who gives birth to God. And you shall call his name Yeshua, or salvation. He will save his people from their sin. And then the angel says, all this took place to fulfill what the Lord has spoken by the prophet. And I'm like, it feels to me like it took place for a lot bigger reasons than just the fulfillment of prophecy. Does that make sense? Like, I'd never seen that before until last night. All this took place to fulfill prophecy. Whereas looking at it from this side of the landscape, I'm like, no, it took place so that I could be rescued from who I am and from my sin. Obviously, both are true. But what's ironic is that then they quote Isaiah, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. All this took place to fulfill the prophecy, not to make Isaiah feel better that it actually came true, but to usher in my fourth observation, is that at the beginning of the verse, his name is Jesus. At the end of the verse, his name is Emmanuel. Why the two names? You shall call his name Jesus at the beginning. At the end, it says, you shall call his name Emmanuel. It's a very powerful thought. I don't have time to break it all down for you, but I just want to share this with you. Jesus comes from the Hebrew word Yeshua or Joshua. It means salvation has come. And that was a prediction, a prophecy that salvation would come. And then it says all this was done so that the prophecy would be fulfilled. And you will call his name Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus is what everybody called him. His friends, his mother, the disciples, the lay people, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the lepers, the blind man, the deaf man, the mute man, the lame man. Everybody called him Jesus. But his name, his description would be Emmanuel. He is Jesus, God with us, Emmanuel. That's his name. This is his description. For my family, it would be his name is Matt. He's crazy. My wife has other names for another time. His name is Jesus. He's described as being with us. And I don't know that hear this out. I don't know that we fully understand that yet. That God is here right now. And Jesus came and he was God. And he is Emmanuel, God with us. And that just kind of blew me away. And here's why that blows me away. And I wrote this down last night. And I don't want to mess it up, so I want to read it to you. It's so powerful that he has Jesus and Emmanuel in this one verse. And it made me think of this. The moment the prophecy is spoken, the act is done. Have you ever committed to something and never followed through on it? I did this diet about 4 years ago during COVID. It was called the 75-day thing you had to do. Anybody heard of 75 hard? So I did that, and you have to exercise twice a day, and then you have to go on a diet. You have to read 10 pages of nonfiction a day, and that one was, I could do that one. And then, but the one that kept getting me is you have to drink a gallon of water a day. And I'm like, I don't even like water. So I'm like, okay, so I was like, first day, now mind you, first day I drink a gallon of water. I'm done by noon, right? You know what I did for the rest of the day? Nothing else, because I was in the bathroom all day. I was on my walks in our neighborhood. My wife's like, I saw you walking, and then you just darted off into the woods. Is there a pathway through there you've been taking? I'm like, nope. She's like, well, why would you? Honey, it's a long story, all right? So I would get about 5 days into that, I'd be like, and I started over, because if you miss any of the 4, you have to start completely over. I started over like 4 or 5 times. There's a lot of things in my life that I have spoken that have never been accomplished, or that I promised, that I've broken those promises. And I think we could all say that. But when it comes to God, when it comes to Jesus, when it comes to prophecy, when it is spoken of God, it is as good as done. God knows no other way. When he speaks it, it is done. So I want to speak his truth over all of us today. And then I'm going to get into some points. So I have this whole section in the middle here. I'm going to skip it because there's a clock here and a clock there, and I need to skip that section because we're not going to have time. So I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then I'm going to get into, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then we're going to get into 3 application points, and then I'm going to give you the reason why we came today, and then I'm going to close with a quick story, and then it'll be 3, and then we can leave. So I never really thought I'd ever get married for a lot of reasons, and I just kind of really had other desires. And then I went to college, and I saw my wife walking across, my future wife walking across the campus. And I was like, I think I do want to get married. So we got married. We've been married 32 years this year, and she always wanted a big family, and so. My wife is not athletic at all, and if she were here, I'd say that because she knows that. She's a phenomenal musician. She knows where middle C is, and but she doesn't. She still doesn't know how many points you get for a touchdown, and anything like that. And but she's always wanted a big family, and so we have 4 boys, and my wife's like, great. So anyway, they played football, and then we adopted a daughter. So we have a big family. So. All my sons played football and basketball, so we had a big tournament at Liberty University. It's been 10 years ago or so. And so we loaded up my kids, and we went to Liberty for 3 days to play in this big tournament with I don't know, 50 teams. There's like 10,000 people there. So we drive in, my middle son's playing on the team, and we get to the hotel, we check in, and we're unpacking. We don't play till the next day, so we're unpacking. And my middle son, Brendan, who was at the time, he was about 7 or 8, we're unpacking, and he's very analytical. He's like my wife, like just very analytical. And he's like, Dad. And I was like, what? And he goes, can you come here a minute? I was like, sure. So I walk across the hotel room, which we had this a little bit larger room because we have a big family. And I said, what's going on? He goes, we got a problem. And I'm like, we do? And he goes, yeah. And I said, what's the problem? He goes, I left my toothbrush. And I'm like, that's the problem? He goes, yeah. I mean, I got my shirt, I got my pants, I got all my shoes. I totally forgot. I said, Brendan, whatever. You know how many things I'm dealing with right now? I got 4 others of you here, okay? And he's like, no, what are we gonna do? I'm like, Brendan, he goes, can we go to Walmart? I said, no, I'll just call down to the front desk and I'll just get you. So I go over and pick the phone up. He said, hold on, hang the phone up. So I hang it up and he goes, you're gonna do what? I was like, I'm just gonna call down to the front desk. You know what we checked in? I said, I'll just call them, I'll get a toothbrush. Sometimes I give you stuff like that. And he's like, you're just gonna call them and tell them I left my toothbrush and they're gonna give you one? I'm like, maybe. I mean, sometimes they have them. He's like, can I call them? And I was like, yeah. He's like, that's crazy. I was like, he's in the middle of a revelation right now. I don't know why. So he goes over, picks up the phone, he dials 0, and he gets on the phone, and the lady answers front desk. She's like, hey, my name's Brendan, and my family and I are here. My brother, he's on the basketball team, and he's playing in the tournament. And we were coming in, so I said, Brendan, she doesn't need like the whole bio of her family. Just tell her what you need. He's like, oh, I was packing, and I packed my clothes. It didn't matter what I say. He's like, I packed my shoes, and I left my toothbrush, and I was like, man, oh, okay. Click. She said, just come over there and get one. I was like, all right. He's like, this is crazy. And his little brother and sister are like, can we go? And I'm like, all of you go. Just come back tomorrow, okay? So they all leave. They leave. They're gone for about 2 minutes. And he comes running back into the room. He's like, Dad, she gave me 3 of them. I'm like, amazing. And he's like, his mind was blown. So anyway, we hang out the day. We spend the night. And they've been wanting to go swimming ever since we got into the car and left North Carolina swimming at the hotel. And so they said, we're not going tonight. So we get up next morning, we're eating breakfast, and my son doesn't play till 2 o'clock. And so my 3 little ones come up to me, and they're like, hey, can we go swimming now? I'm like, not right now. Oh, come on, please, can we just for maybe an hour? And I'm like, okay, just go to the room and change. Your mom and I'll be there in a minute. So they run to the room. My wife and I finish eating, and about 20 minutes later, we go to the room, walk into the room. They have their bathing suits on, but Brendan's back on the phone again. And he's like, hey, and I'm like, whoa, who are you talking to? And he's like, oh, I got it. I was like, no. Who are you talking to? He goes, oh, I called the front desk. I'm like, why are you calling the front desk? He goes, we don't have any goggles. I was like, Brendan, they're not going to give you goggles. As you can't call down there now. My wife said, honey, just pick your battles. I'm like, I'm picking this one, okay? I didn't call out for goggles. Say, oh, hold on a second. Yeah, hey, we need some goggles. We were gonna, oh, okay, click. She said she's got it. I'll be right back. And I'm like, what? So they leave and go get goggles. I'm like, so now I'm calling the front desk. I'm like, hey, my car broke down. Do you have cars too? I don't. So when we tell that story now, we laugh about it. And my son, I don't know what else he called and asked her for, but he probably would have gotten it. And he didn't know. And he can get toothbrush, toothpaste, maybe some deodorant, maybe some hairspray. And he's full on 3 sets of brand new goggles. He didn't know. He just called unknowingly and said, hey, here's what I need. And you know what I learned from that? I would have never called and asked for goggles because I would have been embarrassed. But he didn't know any better. In his 7-year-old mindset, it was like, hey, she gave me a toothbrush, she'll probably give me goggles too, so I'm just gonna call. And it's amazing what realities we accept as we get older. Even when it comes to Jesus. And I'm a firm believer, and I'm gonna give you this quote and then we'll head into some thoughts. I'm a firm believer that many of you here today, including myself, we've stopped asking God for radical things because unknowingly we have begun to believe that maybe he just wouldn't give it to us. When the truth is, he's given you the greatest thing that you could ever possess, and that is salvation and hope and grace and mercy. If he'll give you that, why would he not give you other things that you need that are way less important? A break from your bondage of debt, restoration over a broken relationship, anxiety, fear, depression, mistakes, needs, health issues. Why wouldn't he? Is he capable of doing all of those things? Yes. When was the last time you asked? Sometimes we fear to ask because we think we're scared of disappointments, but the truth is we don't really believe that God would do it for us because we don't deserve it. You're right, we don't deserve anything. But that's how salvation comes. By grace, through mercy, because of Jesus. I'm gonna just give you really quick 3 points, okay? And let me walk you through these from the text. The first one comes from the first part of the text. She will bear a son. Now, my wife, she's had 4 boys. She's had 4 C-sections, and a story for another time. And it's been quite the journey for us in many regards with our kids. And so I've watched her go through so much. We've had a couple miscarriages. One was very far along. And some of you have been through that, and it's a harrowing thing to walk through. And so when I think about giving birth, and then what that entails for a mom, I don't understand it. Let's start there. I made the mistake early on, Craig, when we were married. I was like, honey, come on. I mean, it's been 3 weeks. And then, 3 weeks later, the couch was getting very I might end up here for, a while. And I don't understand any of that process. And now that my boys have, when my sons got old enough to where they could be on their own and move forward, it was a big deal for her. And I read a quote by a gentleman, maybe you've heard of him, not Eugene Peterson, but Jordan Peterson. And I don't know where he is on the span of spirituality, but I'm praying for him. I pray for him every day. By the way, can I just make a side note? I think we should pray for people who are far from God. Well, I pray for you. I pray for a lot of this family in here, the Kilgores and Jason and Craig's family and my family. But when's the last time we prayed for somebody that has a lot of influence? Anyway, that's another message, but I got a whole thought on that. But when we walk through some of these things in regards to my kids moving on. I read this quote by Eugene Peterson. I said, Jordan Peterson. I said, honey, I've read this quote. It said, moms are concerned about where their boys are. Dads are concerned about where their boys are going. And I said, it's so true. Like, you want them to be okay today. I want them to be okay in 10 years. So they need to go. They need to go do the deal. And she would always say, you think they're going to be okay? I'm like, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. And so as they would move on, it was another whole series of pain for her to let go of them. And my oldest, is obviously married and has grandkids, and that's been a whole new deal for us. But her perspective on childbearing is way different than mine. So when I think about the pain and the change and the process of childbearing, I think of a lot of things. Most I don't understand. But I want to give you this point, and I want you just to process this. And here's my goal when I preach. I want you to leave thinking about it. And like, I want to start the thought, and then you leave kind of at lunch, you're like, I got to think about that. That's my goal. Number one, more often than not, pain is the single greatest initiator of the miraculous hope of God. And that's very applicable because a lot of you have been through, it may be hard this morning, you got some stuff in your life that even if you share it with somebody, it wouldn't mean anything because you know they're not going to understand. You have some pain, and I'm telling you, when it's great pain and when it is immobilizing pain and when it is anxious fear and when you make a mistake and your past is carried like a bag of rocks everywhere you go with you, and you have to live through that. It is very painful, but when you stare at it, when you stop and you look in the mirror and say, enough is enough, and you begin to deal with it, you then realize that pain is often the initiator of some of the deepest hope that a person can have. This story proves it. Through the pain of birth came hope for the world. And I don't know what you're dealing with today, but I'm going to tell you right now, God knows about it. He didn't cause it, but he knows about it. And we live in a fallen, broken world, and whatever you feel like you can't get through, you can. And whatever has broken you, God will mend it. I can promise you that. My message that God moved to the side, at least for now, was based out of Romans 3:23. This very short verse that we always would quote in the Romans Road salvation thing. And it's, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And 2 weeks ago when God gave me that message, I'm like, that's not very encouraging. So he flipped me over to a Christmas message. But for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Real quick, give me 1 minute. For all have sinned. What does that mean? That means you've fallen short. That means you're fallen. You were born fallen. I have 4 boys. They learned no real fast. I didn't teach them how to say no. They just learned all of that on their own. We all have sinned. Listen, do you realize that we're all one big community of sinners? Which is crazy to me, how we can judge other people. By the way, I'm way better at judging than I am loving. Can I get a witness on that? Like, it just is natural for me to compare immediately, right? I'm just so good at it. I don't have to work at it. The love part, that's like, I don't know, God, do you love them? He said, yeah, I died for him. I'm like, okay, I'll work on it. For all have sinned, meaning we fall short of the glory of God. What's amazing about Romans 3:23 is most of my life, all I've ever heard about it and all I've ever been preached to about it and all I've ever preached about it is the first part. For all have sinned and come short. We miss the mark. We're very sinful. We're very fallen. We tell lies. We lust. We have pride. We rarely talk about the glory of God. What that means, if Paul is putting the glory of God in Romans 3:23, it must mean that that's the goal. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Well, I didn't know that was the goal. The goal is the glory of God, not me. The glory of God is when you find your deepest meaning, purpose, and hope in some of the most broken seasons of your life. If you go back and just read the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, you got all these crazy stories of people that found themselves at their wits' end. And that's when God said, now I can use you. I'm married 32 years. And I remember about 10 years, 15 years into my marriage, I don't know. She's the oldest of three. I'm the youngest of four. She doesn't like the Miami Dolphins. I don't know. She's not even a Christian. And so it came to where it was a struggle. And like, she was like, because my love language is words of affirmation, right? And hers is quality time. And I can't think of a worse one for me to have to serve than quality time, because I don't sit well. I don't like, she just wants to sit and hang. And I'm like, after about 30 seconds, I'm like, is that long? Is that good? Because I feel nervous, like I'm anxious. She was like, just hang. And I'm like, I'm trying. Anyway, it's a problem. So we were having a discussion one day about that stuff. And she was like, I don't know that you get it. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't get it. She was like, well, I don't know what we're going to do about that. And I said, I don't either. I said, can I just say this to you? And she said, sure. I said, I don't know how to do what you're asking me to do. And she said to me, that's the most honest thing you've ever said to me. And so we've been working on that for the last 15 years, getting better at it. At some point, I don't know, because of my sin and falling short, what it means to embrace or to engage or to live out the glory of God. It's almost incomprehensible to me. I'm going to tell you how in a minute, though. But through pain, often you see hope. And so I just want to share this with you real quickly. I don't know what you got going on, but I can tell you this. God wants to use it. It's not a mistake. And he's not going to waste it. He's not going to waste it. Often pain is a time for you to have your deepest communion ever with God. Secondly, this one's short, but you got to give me a minute to explain it, okay? Because it might sound like I was reading this out loud last night. Actually, it was at 3 this morning. And it sounded almost heretical, and it's not, because I checked. But let me read it to you, and then we'll get into it, okay? So pain is often the single greatest initiator of the miraculous hope of God. Number 2, divinity is radically and personally an intimate thing. Divinity is radically intimate. And what do I mean by that? When I look at this verse, she shall bear a son. You will call his name Jesus. He will save his people from their sins. You have a frail, fallen teenager giving birth to God. This intermix of humanity and divinity is overwhelming to me, because divinity is a very personal thing. The holiness of God is a very personal thing. The power of God, the presence of God, the omnipotence of God, the omnipresent, it's a very personal thing. But because we're so fallen, it's hard to engage with it sometimes. That's why Mary would stop and ponder all of this. But his divinity is very personal. I'm going to read this too, because I don't want to mess it up. Mary birthed divinity in Jesus, and she held divinity, and then she ultimately gave divinity away to die, and then experienced divinity coming back to life to save her. It's such a powerful loop back that God would use us to do anything. For me to speak I'm still humbled by it. And I would say there have been seasons in my life when I've spoken for me and not for Jesus. Does that make sense? During that 3.5-hour worship night where me and my new friend, John Wilds, were hanging out, it was 2,000 people in front of me, but I didn't think he knew I was back there. There were people worshiping. And they're all worship leaders, so they all can sing. I don't even know where middle C is. So I'm in the back. My son texted me, are you here? And I'm like, I'm in the back. And he was like, that's the perfect place for you. But man, I'm watching, and they're all like, and this will get me emotional because this is one of my passions. This room is full of 17, 16, 18, 19-year-olds worshiping Jesus. I'm gonna tell you, I don't know what you think about the next generation, but I'm gonna tell you right now, Gen Zs and they're gonna change the world. They will usher in a movement of the Spirit of Christ, and I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. And I'm watching them worship. Absolutely, you can clap for that, absolutely. And I know we have our observations of them, and I know my kids, they don't put anything away still. Every morning I get up, all the lights are on, the ranch is out, the ketchup's out, there's half drinks out, the 2-liter lid's off. Anyway, I know they got their stuff, but I'm telling you, for such a time as this, God's gonna use them. I'm watching them worship, and I was so convicted over how I don't worship. Randomly, Craig, some of those young people were coming up to me and putting their hands on me, praying over me. And they don't even know who I am. No, maybe they know that I know John Wilds. Maybe I'm famous now. I don't know. Just coming up and praying. Like, I'm talking bold prayers. And I don't know them and never saw them. Probably will never see them again. But I'm telling you right now, I was convicted over the fact that I often live my life more for me than I do for Jesus. And he wants us to live in his divinity. As a matter of fact, divinity is very personal. 1 Peter 1 says, he has granted us these great and precious promises so that through those promises, we can be partakers of the divine nature of God. Romans 8 says we are conformed into the image of his son. Can I do it real quick? This is another message, but I got to give you this thought. Do you know why some of us keep sinning? It's because I think, and this is a thought that I need to break down another time. I think it's because we often think that escaping sin means to run from it, and you should. But you want to really overcome sin, run to the glory of God. I don't always want to be running from something. I need to be running towards something. And when I can engage with what I'm running toward, which is the presence of God, the glory of God, then these things, they don't just be something that I'm trying to escape. They're now something that I don't even want anymore. Does that make sense? The divinity of Christ is very personal. If you want to deal with the divinity of Christ in your life and be a partaker of it, then get up every morning and look in the mirror and realize that is your greatest problem. You. It's you and you. It's you and your darkness. It's you and your failures. It's you and your mistakes. It's you and your sin. But it's also you and his promises. You and his grace. You and his salvation. And he trumps all of your junk. He trumps all of your breaking and your brokenness. And in this moment, this picture in Matthew 1 is about divinity stepping onto the platform of earth saying, I got your back, but you got to run to me. Real quick, and then I'll give my last point. And you're not going to like this, and you're not going to believe it, but it's true. You're holier than you think. You just haven't accepted it yet. If you're a believer, if you've given your life to Jesus, you are a child of God. When I gave John Wilds the hug, I keep talking about it because I want me to think that he's really my friend. When I gave John Wilds a hug, you know what I said to him? We told that story. I said, thank you for loving my son. Because I have a lot of important things that I have and that I do in my life. I love doing ministry. I love preaching. I love helping people. I mean, the greatest gift God's ever given me was my family, my kids. And I won't fight you over a whole lot. You can cut me off in traffic. You can bring me the wrong order at the restaurant. I'm real low key. But man, I'll fight you over my family. And I'm God's child. That should be enough. But I add so much to it. And for another time, let me get to my last point so we can almost wrap up. Number one, pain is often the greatest initiator of hope. Number two, divinity is radically intimate and personal. Number three, oh man, this one's very practical, okay? So let me read it to you. In times of uncertainty, trust what you don't understand as the goal is not for God to give you answers. This is important. In times of uncertainty, trust what you don't understand because the goal is not for God to give you answers. The goal is for God to give you Emmanuel. You want answers. God wants you. Answers are fine, okay? I've gotten phone calls before when I've been traveling out of the country. So-and-so, one of my boys, got hurt, broke his leg. The least important question is, how did it happen? Or he broke it on the skateboard. That doesn't matter. I now know how he broke it. Did that help me? No. The question is he okay? Of course. How it happened doesn't matter. We seek answers as if we think answers bring hope. His goal is not to give you answers. His goal is what he's already given you, which is Jesus, which is Emmanuel. God with us, encapsulated in Emmanuel, is all the answers. And I hate to be so trite, but they're already here. I don't always read and understand, but I always read because I need it. The answers are here. When you don't understand, you have to trust. And you may not, and hear me out on this, and please don't be depressed by this. You may not fully know the full answer till heaven. I have lots of answers. None of them really matter. I have more questions. Let me give you a quote. I wrote this last night. Trials magnify the presence of God. I got this message I'm writing right now on Jonah. I'm so Jonah. God's like, go here. I'm like, I'll go that way. Jonah is on the boat. God descends down on him like a storm. The boat's going to sink. You know where Jonah was when all that was happening? Do you remember? He's asleep. Totally clueless. Listen, by the way, when you run from God, you're as clueless as you ever will be. And they can't calm the seas. The boat's going under. They're praying to all their gods. And they come down and they're like, Jonah, man, get up. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, we're going to die. And Jonah realizes, oh, man, it's me. So he goes up. Remember what he told him? It's me. Just throw me over. He gave up. He's like, I can bring peace to you. And they throw him overboard. Do you realize that not only did they find peace, but when they threw Jonah into the chaos, that's when he found his peace. Because God wasn't done with him. And he's not done with you. And God sends a great fish, swallow him. You know, Jonah's like, are you kidding me? Thought it was over. He spends 3 days in a fish. The fish vomits him up on shore. Great story. He goes to Nineveh. He preaches. Everybody gets saved. The whole city gets saved. And he's mad. If I preached, everybody got saved, I'd be like, what next? What city's next, right? Jonah has some issues. But it was in his moments of chaos that he found his direction. Trials magnify God's presence. In this moment, behold, the virgin shall conceive. He will bear a son. His name will be called Emmanuel, God with us, and he will save you from your trials. So let me close. Let me give you one more thought, and then we're going to have Jerry. Is it Jerry, right? You have to, not yet, almost, yeah. Jerry's going to play a song for me. And because I know John Wild, I'm going to sing it. No, I'm just kidding. He's going to play a song here in a minute, but I get to my last story. But let me give you one more thought. Here's why I want you to hear this message. This is why. So I want you to, this is the most applicable part. It's not one of my points, but it's the most applicable part, I think. This passage that I'm reading is just Matthew recording what the angel said to Joseph. So remember Joseph, he's got stuff going on. He's betrothed to Mary. She gets pregnant. The angel's like, hey, this is all good. And he's like, no, this is not good. Because it's not my baby. And he's like, it's God. And Joseph didn't go, oh, that makes sense. He's like, no, wait a minute. So an angel appears to him, and this is where you get Matthew 1, verses 21, 22, and 23, and then 24. Here's what I want to close with. Verse 24, and when Joseph woke from his sleep, because he had a dream. When Joseph awoke from his sleep. By the way, real quick, I know this is not why Matthew wrote it this way, but do you realize that sometimes when life doesn't make sense, we just tune out. We just disconnect. Maybe we don't go to sleep, but we just disconnect. And the Bible says when he awoke from his sleep, and I look up the word awake and arise in the Old Testament, it's all over the place. Awake, arise, awake. Stop your slumber. It doesn't mean sleep. It means arise from your anxiety, arise from your spiritual slothfulness. Awake, arise, and God will return to you what has been lost. And when Joseph awoke from his sleep, this is great. I love this. I know it's still simple and it's not going to maybe be as significantly magnificent as some other stuff, but as he awoke from his sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him, and he called his name Jesus. I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but you got Joseph. He didn't understand how Mary conceived a baby. He didn't just wake up with faith. He didn't wake up with this scientific understanding of how divinity created a baby, how that baby would be perfect. He didn't understand any of that. He doesn't know the Old Testament scrolls. He just wants to get married, and now the girl he's engaged to is pregnant. And he's got a lot going on, and he's angry, and he wants to put her away. And God appears to him through an angel and says, don't put her away. Who she's giving birth to is a son of God, and you will call his name Jesus. And he wakes up and says, Mary, we're going to call him Jesus. He didn't all of a sudden understand. It's by faith. Listen, he was obedient. And he trusted. And he would usher in one of the most beautiful stories ever. I want to be like Joseph. I want to be obedient. I want to be radical in my faith. This is a radical story. But the majority, and forgive me for saying this, but it is true, the majority of Christians don't live radically spiritual lives. It's just the truth. And I'm so excited to share this with you, because if I believe in any place, it's this place. If I believe in any people, it's these people. This is where everything began for me. And I'm so honored to be here. And God's not done with you. And a great church, listen, a great church begins with broken people pursuing a radical God. Saying, God, do something in me. I don't know what you're going to do in Craig, and I don't know what you're going to do in Preacher Kilgore. I don't know what you're going to do in Jason. I don't know what you're going to do in Jerry. I don't know what you're going to do in, but God, in me, I need you to do this. And he will answer that prayer. When you leave, I challenge you, when you leave today, go home, get away, get alone for 20 minutes, and ask God, what do you want me to stop doing? And what do you want me to start doing? And I promise you, he will answer you almost immediately. So let me close with a story. Jerry, you can come on up and play. He's going to play a little song as I share this story. I'm going to share this story, and I'm going to make a quick point, and then we're going to be done, and I'm going to pray and turn it over to the band. It's kind of a serious story. It's got a little humor to it, but I have a point at the end of it I want to make. About 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, I was in a mall in Miami, Florida with my kids. And it was a Saturday afternoon. It was packed, thousands of people in this mall. And my kids, all my boys, they love sports. And so anytime we see a sports store, we'll go in there and hang out. My wife's always thrilled about that. And so we go in this sports store, we're hanging out, and they're looking at footballs and jerseys and baseball, little baseball cards, little football cards. So the kids they're just wandering around the store looking at hats, and the hats at the mall are like $400. Like, Dad, can we have one of these? I'm like, nope. And so they're looking around, and so I'm hanging out with my older two, and Brendan, who was at the time, he's about 7. He's my middle son. He was standing there, and we were looking at stuff, and there was this whole bin of like wallets and hats and shirts, and we're looking through that, and I didn't see Brendan, and so I thought, I wonder where he went, because the store wasn't that large, about the size of maybe the back half of where the coffee back there is in the sound room, and so I walked to the back of the store. It took me about 30 seconds, and my wife was back with my daughter, and I said, honey, you have Brendan? And she was like, well, he's just here a minute ago, but I don't know where he is now. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, I start looking around in the back of the store, and I don't see him. So I walked back to the front of the store, and I still don't see him. And then I told Alex and my older two, Alex and Blake, I'm like, is he with you? And they're like, we haven't seen him. I'm not panicking yet. You know what I'm saying? If you're, how many parents in here? If I'm gonna say, okay, I'm not panicking yet, but it's crossed on my mind, right? I can't find Brendan. And and I go back and I said, honey, he's not in the front. He's not back here either. She was like, well, where is he? I'm like, well, honey, if I knew that, I wouldn't be back here asking you where he was. That went over really well, by the way. She said, well, maybe we should find him. I'm like, brilliant. So we start looking through the store. I go through the store 3 times. It's been 5 minutes, can't find him. And then I realize he's not in the store. And I go to the lady at the desk, she was about 8 years old. And I was like, hey, I can't find my son. She's like, okay. I'm like, no, that means I need your help. So she called security guard to come to my son. He was in the store. I don't know if he's still in here. He said, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, you need to look in here. I'm going to go. And at that point, I'm beginning to panic a little bit. And I leave the store and I go to this mall and I'm thinking, where's the nearest exit? That's where my mind has now gone. It's been almost 10 minutes. Where's the nearest exit? So I sprint through that mall, full speed. And I'm like, I don't care who I'm cutting off. It takes me about 30 seconds to get to the first turn to go to the exit. And I'm running the exit and I'm calling his name. I'm like, Brendan. Nothing. People are looking at me, don't care. And I go outside just to see if I see anything, questionable. And I don't see any cars leaving. I don't even know what I'm looking for. Does that make sense? I'm just panicking. And I'm screaming his name out when I'm outside, thinking by now maybe they found him back inside, right? And so I'm walk around the landing area, the sidewalk before you get to the parking lot. I'm looking, I don't see any cars leaving. I don't see anything suspicious. And I'm like, Brendan, and I don't see him. I run back inside and I run back down the mall and I go by the store where we were, and the gate to the store has been lowered, like the big crate gate. And I realized then, okay, we got a problem. And so the gate's lowered. I'm on the phone with my wife. She's crying. She goes, he's not in the store. So now I run to the next nearest exit, which is in the opposite direction. And I'm running full speed. And now I'm panicking. I'm tearing up a little bit. And I run outside. I'm looking outside. Nothing. Can't find him. And here's the thing. While I'm running around, freaked out of my mind, nobody's the wiser. Does that make sense? Like, people just going on with their day, with their bags, understandably so. And my heart is ripped out. And it's been 20 minutes, nothing. And so I'm outside looking, I run back in. Now there's another security guard. He's running the other way. And I'm like, dude, you need to make a phone call to make an announcement in this mall. And he goes, I'm heading there now. So he's on his walkie-talkie, and I'm running back, and I got my wife on the phone, and I'm running back to the store and to see where the next nearest exit is, or is there a back door to the store? And I'm running full speed. It's been like almost 25 minutes, and I look up, and about 50 yards in front of me, I see him. And he's just walking through the mall. And he's just kind of looking around, and you have this moment where it's a huge relief, right? But just like, I want to get to him. And so I run up to him and I said, Brendan. He's like, hey. And I was like, buddy, where are you? He said, we're in the mall. I was like, no. I said, Brendan, everybody's looking for you. Look at the store. The door's shut. They're making announcements. He said, Dad, why are you crying? I said, because I didn't know where you were. We couldn't find you. He's like, are you okay? And I was like, I am now. I said, are you okay? He goes, yeah.
He said, Dad, can I ask you a question? I said, sure, anything. He's like, could I have this wallet? I got it out of that store, and I just didn't know if I could have it. And I was like, what? Not only you're lost, you're a thief. And I called my wife, and I was like, I got him. And so we get back to the store, thank everybody, and it's so quiet in my car on the ride home. And he's none the wiser. He got a wallet out of that bin and thought we had left the store, and he was walking around. I think we actually kept that wallet. I think we did steal that wallet. And I've thought about that story through the years and how for 25 minutes, and then once you hear me say this, I didn't care what anybody thought about me. I didn't care what they had going on. I had a singular focus, and that was to find my son. And it just takes you to a different place. I want to say this to you before I pray. That's the way God has pursued you. As if you were the only one. He pursued you so much. He sent his son to be birthed in a manger, to give you hope and to give you peace and to give you joy and to give you recovery and restoration and newness, because God's never done with you. I want to challenge you. What if you made an agreement with God this morning before you leave this place that you're going to pursue God as radically as he pursues you? He can't pursue you any more than he already has. He's all the way in. He gave you his son. I want to challenge you. Pursue God singularly. Stop worrying about what everybody else thinks about you. Just pursue Jesus. Let him cleanse your brokenness and cleanse your sin and cleanse your past. And watch him redeem what you never thought he could ever use. And watch him radically not only change your life, but explode in this room. Envision a day, and some of you may not like this, but you ought to envision a day when you come into this room and you can't find a seat. And you're having a meeting about, we should offer another service. That would be cool. Getting on mission with God starts not with growing a church, it starts with changing you on the inside. And through that, God will absolutely radically do things you could never imagine. Father, we pray unto you, who is able to do immeasurably more all than we could ask or think, through the power that works in us. God, thank you for this beautiful, sadly seasonal story that we often don't refer to until Christmas time. What a powerful story to talk about in July. And so God, we thank you for your divinity. We thank you for Jesus, for Emmanuel. Thank you for the pain that we see you come through and then restore 33 years later on the cross through the resurrection. Thank you for this beautiful church. I love this place. I love these people. Thank you for Pastor and Miss Joy and Jason and their family. Thank you for this church. Thank you for calling me to your service. I love you today, and I thank you for who you are. God bless us indeed. Enlarge our coast. May your hand be upon us, and God keep us from evil. And we will be careful to give you all the honor, the glory, and the praise. And we pray all these things in the name of Jesus Christ, and all God's people said. Amen and amen. God bless you. I love you. The band's going to sing for us.